morning. 8:59. Let's go over to Public Auditor BJ Cruz. Good morning, Public Auditor.
Off a day.
Good morning.
Wow, so what have you been up to?
Reading audits.
Wow. Oh, boy.
Well,
so what about the letter from Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes? Did you get a chance to read that?
Yes.
What did you think?
Well, no, I understand where people want, we all want some accountability, and this Saturday, most of my staff will be tuning into a webinar that the National Association of State Auditors and Comptrollers and Treasurers will be conducting to give state auditors some idea on how they can and should be or will be auditing CARES Act expenditures and COVID expenditures.
Yeah, Public Auditor, could you just go over what, because there was someone talking to someone yesterday, they said, Public Auditor BJ Cruz, he doesn't have the authority to audit this CARES money, it's federal money. What's he going to do? He doesn't have, can you just clarify what authority you have to conduct audits or whatever that involve the use of federal funds? The Guam Public Auditor's Office of Public Accountability, by statute, has been given the authority to be able to audit anything that the government of Guam does. I will admit that and I told Speaker this when I spoke to her yesterday, the only authority that the public auditor does not, the Office of Public Accountability does not have, is the 6103 authority to be able to review income tax returns. So that really is going to impinge on our ability to be able to check on who gets the stimulus checks and who gets the unemployment.
But you can track where this $118 million is being spent. Who's staying at the Pacific Star on the government's dime. Those kinds of things you can check into?
Those kinds of the expenditures, as long as it doesn't include or necessitate my looking into income tax returns, I can review. Expenditures for, as you put it, hotels that are being used as quarantine centers. We can look at the standard operating procedure and do a performance report on how that was implemented and what shortcomings there were. When it comes to the $194 million that's going out to unemployed individuals, I'm not sure how we're going to be able to do that. That's why I'm really intrigued with this training this weekend, to try to figure out how we're going to be able to determine who is qualified.
Well, I know Dave De La Sola in previous interviews, he's been saying that he has to make sure everything is legit, all of the information is accurate, because he could be subject to audit by, I think he said, the Inspector General.
Yeah, the Office of Inspector General and also the General Accounting Office has announced that it's going to be doing audits because of the fact that the Trump administration has sort of indicated that they don't want to have, they've been firing inspectors generals. The GAO is completely separate, and so they're going to be doing audits themselves. I misspoke. It's the Government Accountability Office. GAO has changed the meaning of its acronym.
Speaker, what advice? I mean, do these senators call you? You got the institutional knowledge. I mean, they're all saying the same thing. I mean, even those Democrats in the leadership positions, the innies, I like to call them.
Even now they're starting to turn on the governor and calling for transparency and saying, hey, we don't know what you're spending money on. So if you can't go in there and do the performance audits, or you're limited, the GAO or whoever can only do it, then what advice would you give these senators in terms of, like, how do we hold the administration accountable, and how do we just get basic info during this public health emergency? Maybe you should do like a TED Talk or something.
Eventually,
I mean, geez, these guys
eventually we will all find out. But the thing is that we have to understand that it's financial management that the executive branch has. And, you know, I've been cringing because in some of the, well, over the last two or 3 years, how many times have even when I was at the legislature, passing legislation to make sure that there's no commingling of funds. And when you receive funds for a certain purpose, it should be spent for that purpose and that purpose alone. And I'm not sure what the memorandum of understanding or MOAs with the federal government are on the various tranches of funds, of whether or not there's no commingling of that those funds are only for that very purpose. It's very clear in the guidance straight up that you can't reimburse yourself for money that was already accounted for in your budget.
Right.
You know, I think that's number 2 in the whole set. So there are some things that they can't, or they shouldn't be doing if it's already budgeted for in the current budget. But we also have to remember we were all in the media were screaming at Department of Administration about commingling. I remember how exorcised I was when I discovered that they approved the use of child support money to make payroll. People forget that. And then when we had the hearing and the controller for the government of Guam came in and said, you know, you guys passed this legislation, you want me to do this, you want me to do this, and you want me to do this. Which law do you want me to violate? Which law do you want me to break in order to be able to do the things that you want me to do? So we just have to have, you know, allow the administration to spend money. I mean, to do what they have to do, but they also have to remember, as Mr. De La Sola told you, they're going to be audited, and if any of the expenditures are not approved, are not approved, then the government of Guam is going to have to pay that back.
Mm-hmm.
So they better be careful, because we're in a world of hurt right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we thought that the CRER from last month looks bad. The CRER that's going to come out for this month of April is going to show a huge deficit, because April 15th is the date that all the tax refunds tax payments were supposed to be made. That's been moved to July.
Yeah. It sounds like you're saying
they don't have all that. They don't have all that money.
So it kind of sounds like you're saying that we just got to wait till it's all over.
We just got to trust them that they're doing the right thing.
Necessarily mean to be all over, but we need for it to get started. And the one advice that I gave, the only advice that I gave a couple of weeks ago when I was interviewed, was read the regulations, be intimately aware of every single reg that there is, and religiously and scrupulously apply each one. Do not waver, do not, because if you do, then there will be unapproved expenditures,
right,
and we'll be responsible for the reimbursement of that.
We
have no money to reimburse anybody.
I guess in closing, because we just kind of wanted to see where you were on and all this. What would your message be to those people? Because public auditor, people kind of look to you as someone who holds people accountable. Office of Public Accountant.
And that's why this weekend at 5 o'clock in the morning, because the webinar starts at 3 o'clock on Eastern Standard Time. So at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, my staff's getting up to listen to this webinar so that we can learn what it is that all the state auditors and comptrollers and treasurers throughout the country are doing, and what advice they have for us on how we're going to be able to audit these things. I mean, this is all new for everybody. Mm-hmm. This is not something that we've done before, especially in the amounts that are involved. $194 million on unemployment ones. That's going to be really hard. And how do you account for who were the ones that received it? How did they just, did they have the proper certifications that these people were released or laid off? There's the issue with the first $1,200 only going to people making less than $75,000. Immediately somebody, I'm sure, is going to say, "How did so and so get a check for the $1,200?" Well, I mean, if I'm asked and I say, well, especially if it's, how did Senator so and so get it? Well, we all know that they make less than $75,000.
Yeah.
So I won't need to go to their income tax returns to be able to determine. Yeah. If they're married, however, then I don't know how much their spouse makes. Whether they make over the 150 combined, would that disqualify them? I won't be able to determine that. So there's some that we're going to be able to see, and and I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of finger pointing about how did so and so get it, and so they have to be really careful to make sure that they don't screw up, because it could mean that in August that our Section 30 is reduced by whatever amount they disqualify as expenditures, which puts us in the hurt for the next fiscal year.
Right. So, public auditor, I guess just for the people out there listening on all the different platforms, what would your message be to them in terms of them expecting you to hold the administration accountable, to make sure that they're being transparent, to make sure they're not doing any funny business? What would your message be to those people? Because, like I said, I kind of thought you were going to go harder. Bang the table. We're gonna. No.
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able. I'm not. My staff's not going to be in there reviewing before the checks go out. Right, yeah. We're going to, when we audit, it's going to be after the checks go out, right, and we see what the expenditures were and whether or not they complied with.
Are you going to be looking back at all the procurement, because we've waived all the procurement during this public health emergency? Is that something that your office has the authority to do and will do? Mm-hmm.
If somebody makes the request, then yes. I mean, like yesterday's Post editorial reminded everybody about the fact that I questioned the last administration on the on the retroactive pay. I immediately yesterday afternoon got an email from a citizen saying, "Did everybody pay back?" That's going to be that I will hold as a request by a citizen for an audit of that. I hadn't looked at it, but now that this citizen has
right. So
are you also going to be looking at the issue with who's getting double pay, who's not getting double pay,
who's getting hazard pay, who's not?
Yeah. Yes. All of those things will be utilized. And when Speaker called me yesterday,
And she said, "What do you need?" I said, "Forget. I only have 9 auditors. You budgeted me for 11, but unfortunately, 2 of them got pirated away by agencies that were able to pay them $20,000 or $30,000 more than my office is able to pay." And so I'm down 2, and I don't know. We were in the process of hiring. In fact, I had just gotten the recommendation from the review staff on who to hire and the number of them, and we were ready to put them on, and we went into lockdown. And now we've been notified that our office budget has been cut back. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pick up additional people. I told her, I said, I need auditors to be able to do all of these things. It's impossible with just with 9, and the fact that we have to comply with GASB rules and things, and so it's every one of those audits is done by 2 people, not just one. One is the field auditor, and then there's one that reviews it, and then a third reviews the work that the first 2 did, and then somebody code reads it. It really is labor intensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, like the vice speaker said, where there's a will, there's a way.
Right. So is there the will with you, public auditor?
No, there's definitely a will, and my staff was really excited when I sent them the text that I got. Email that I got yesterday, or the day before yesterday, that there was going to be this webinar, and I said, "Does anybody want to listen in on this?" And most of them were saying that they were willing to get up at 5 o'clock on Saturday morning to listen to this webinar, so that we could learn. I said, "Well, we're going to be asked to do a number of that's all we're going to be doing for the next year is COVID-related
auditing, right?
Audits. So we better learn." Right. How the states are handling it and what we need.
So public auditor, I wanted to go back to the procurement because we had gotten this. I guess it's a bill that they sent to Linda over at Public Health. It's from Pacific Star. It's for a rental period of the Pacific Star Hotel from March 23rd through April 5th for a grand total of $600,000. And so, that's a pretty short rental period, and they've obviously been using that hotel for a while, so I guess you can reasonably come up with an estimate of $1.6 million or whatever. But then, so they got this service, but then when you look at who owns the hotel and how much they donated to Lou and Josh's campaign, it just kind of reeks of, it is what it is. I know the way the game goes, but that's why I'm saying we can talk about the stimulus checks and all that stuff, but with the emergency procurement, we keep hearing there's a lot of stuff going on. So, again, how closely of a look are you going to take at those things?
We will be looking at everything and everything that people, all the whistleblowing that
can I just count that as a request, or do I got to call and leave a message?
Well, no, you've not needed to. You forget how many you've made requests of.
Hey. Right on. Okay.
So just so we're clear, when a state of emergency, declaration of emergency is declared, all procurement rules and regulations are pretty much out the door, and you just move forward and procure, purchase, hire, whatever you need to get the job done. Is that how it works?
I will withhold whether or not I agree with that until we do the audit.
Okay. Well, thank you, Public Auditor. Appreciate the call. And then I guess maybe we'll touch base with you next week because I feel like people are going to be sending you a bunch of letters because the senators are pretty upset.
Okay.
Okay. You all right, though?
Thanks.
You okay?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Wash your hands. Okay. Public Auditor BJ Cruz there, 919. Let's take a little break, and we'll come back with more of KUAM News containing COVID.